What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering. I hope you're having an absolutely wonderful day. I noticed our good friend Bud Light was trending this morning on Twitter, and I thought, ooh, yes, finally. It's always nice to have a kind of a guaranteed dunk on a Monday when news is generally pretty slow. Sorry, the screen might be shaking. I think I sprained my ankle. I hurt my foot pretty bad this weekend, forgetting that I'm 41. And so I have it like kind of tried to, the only way I can work is if it's like rested up. Anyway, thumbs up for being old. So it turns out that people on the left are trying to cancel a guy for selling his Bud Light stock. Trying to cancel a conservative Supreme Court justice for selling Bud Light stock. Now, did he sell it based on some insider information? No. He sold it based on the extraordinarily public information that everyone was available to see, and he instead bought a competitor's stock. Yet, this is one of the weirdest fake attempts to cancel a guy that the left has mustered in a while. Now, just to bring you up to speed here, obviously, things have been going extremely poorly for Bud Light. Now, AB InBev, their parent company, seems to be doing relatively fine, but on the basically, a year later, roughly, a year and a half later, this is where they're at. Grocery stores that stock Bud Light are planning to shrink the shelf space allotted to the nation's formerly top-selling beer. I've talked about this part before. Nearly 20% in some parts of the country after stocks tanked following a boycott over its advertising partnership with brand destroyer Dylan Mulvaney. As you can see, I have his Dylan's action figure here. The Anheuser-Busch brand, which was knocked off its perch earlier this year by Modelo after 2 decades at the top, will be squeezed out as store managers rearrange the beer sections to give more precious real estate to better-selling beers, according to Bloomberg News. Anheuser-Busch beers will lose a range of 10 to 15% of their space nationally as resets start. Jesse Ferber, Chief Strategy Officer, says retailers such as Walmart and Target will be doing this. Ferber said that while the final numbers won't be known until May or June, he estimates that stores in certain regions of the country could downgrade Bud Light shelf space by as much as 18%, while others, it could be as low as 5%. I suppose, you have woke parts of town or, areas where people aren't terminally online like we are, less aware of the hullabaloo, perhaps, possibly. But Molson Coors, of course, whose stable of brands include Coors Light, Miller Lite, Coors, Banquet, expect to see an increase of shelf space of more than 10%. Now, we saw this essentially with other domestics, whether it was Coors, Miller Lite, and also, Modelo, I think, Modelo Especial. These were all picking up where Bud Light dropped off. So it wasn't that people stopped drinking beer, it was that they stopped drinking Bud Light. When the left says, that normal people can't coordinate and boycott like they do, this was a great example. Again, a year has Bud Light survived the boycott. A year after this was put out just a few days ago, Bud Light sales remained flat more than a year after the brand faced conservative boycott from consumers angered over its teaming up with Dylan Mulvaney. AB InBev, which owns Budweiser and Bud Light, said overall global sales topped $14.5 billion. However, sales in the United States fell 9.1% during January to March this year. Sales to retailers were down 13.7%, primarily due to volume decline of Bud Light, which means that volume decline of Bud Light must be much higher than 13%, because that's the aggregate total, right? The total sales were down 13%, which means Bud Light must be down, close to 20%. And so obviously you see the sales decline continues. AB InBev have seen a U.S. sales decline since the boycott, which arose after the video, about the company's March Madness giveaway. Subsequently, Modelo Especial overtook Bud Light in May 2023 as the best-selling beer U.S. Constellation Brands. Now, of course, they went to the UFC, they went to the Olympics, they went to Shane Gillis. None of this worked. None of this worked. Now, AB InBev stock is doing just fine because, well, they have more than just Bud Light. I mean, obviously, the last 5 days, today it's down, but, they're replacing Bud Light with many of the other products that they're selling. But now the left is trying to go after a Supreme Court justice who happens to lean conservative for the crime of selling shares of Bud Light and buying a competitor. When the entire world could see what was going to happen, somehow he's not allowed to move his money. It's the weirdest, fake, pathetic boycott, and they're trying to make it like insider trading or something like that, but that's not really what it is. I mean, hey, I think that anybody in government should not be allowed to be trading any stocks, directly or indirectly, because not only do they all seem to have some very real, incentives to be naughty and to use insider information, like allegedly Nancy Pelosi has, whose, stocks are legendary performers. But they should just preclude themselves from getting, being in government shouldn't make you rich. I don't think that most people would disagree with that. I actually don't have a problem with high salaries and stuff like that for government officials. I really don't, because you've got to, appeal to people who may be foregoing something else. But it's like this whole, you have a Spotify podcast after you get out. You suddenly have the best stock portfolio in the world. You suddenly have brand deals. You suddenly have a TV show, all this nonsense. And everyone in America is just like, oh, I mean, not you, but you get what I mean. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito sold off shares of Bud Light during a right-wing boycott. His offloading of shares came during the right-wing fueled boycott of Anheuser-Busch after Bud Light partnered with Dylan Mulvaney. Again, something he's completely allowed to do, not based off any insider information. The left is trying to make this a big deal, but it's not. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito sold off his shares in Bud Light parent company Anheuser-Busch as it faced right-wing boycott last year, according to new findings from its financial report. In mid-August, Alito, one of the more conservative-leaning justices in court, sold off his stock in Anheuser-Busch and instead bought shares of rival beer conglomerate Molson Coors. Seems probably like a good investment move. The revelation emerged in a periodic transaction report that was initially posted by the Federal Judicial Financial Disclosure Reports database and first reported by Law Dork. His offloading of shares came just months into a right-wing fueled boycott of Anheuser-Busch after Bud Light partnered with Dylan Mulvaney to promote the beer during March Madness. Again, they have to make this concession, by the way. Though Justice Alito's decision to sell his shares of the beer company may be unconnected to the boycott, the new findings come at a time in when he is facing scrutiny for hanging an American flag upside down outside of his home after J6. Now more than ever, people have a negative view of the Supreme Court. More than half of 8,400 Americans surveyed for Pew Research study, now they have an unfavorable view of the U.S. Supreme Court. Why? Because it's not Democrat-led, it's not liberal-led. Over the last year, the 9 Supreme Court justices have come increasingly under the public microscope, especially when it comes to their personal political viewpoints. Again, only because it's a conservative-leaning majority. By the way, their personal politics is not supposed to be affecting any of their decisions. I mean, obviously it does, but it's not supposed to. Over the last year, 9 Supreme Court justices have come increasingly under the public microscope. Clarence Thomas's personal and financial ties to Republican megadonor came through. ProPublica investigations prompting him for calls for him to recuse himself, which he didn't do because he didn't need to do. I don't really understand why this is such a weird wannabe controversy. It doesn't affect anything. Like a lot of people sold Bud Light stock during that period. I'm sure he didn't. I mean, it's not like the government had any kind of insider information. But if you look at a lot of the Twitter hullabaloo, X, if you look up Alito, people are pretending like this is some kind of coup. Like this is some kind of, oh, Alito sold stock while using information that was available to everyone in the world. Where does the corruption end? Exactly. Like, again, Law Dork exclusive. Alito sold Bud Light stock during anti-trans boycott. Well, let's see. Ungrammatically omitted comma after the A positive modifier. Also, by the morning, Ari Drennan and Media Matters posted a video of Mulvaney. The Alito gonna blame the neighbor with a sign in his yard too. Lock him up. Whether Alito was participating in the boycott matters. What? No, it doesn't. Exclusive. Law Dork doesn't understand the meaning of the word boycott. Choosing to sell a stock as a company's sales plummet isn't participating in a boycott. It's evidence of being able to read the news. Most of you got so what, and sound smart, and smart guy. Like, they're so desperate to try, like, to pathetically make this a thing. Like, even if you knew nothing about or had no opinion politically about the potential boycott at that time, you just saw the sales drop, you saw the shelf space drop, you saw the negative press. You wouldn't have to even have an opinion. Are you supposed to just lose money because people don't call you anti-trans? By the way, Bud Light does not have its own stock. It's AB InBev. That's part of it. Such a small amount. So he's the worst of the worst. Impeach. Again, what? This is such a nothing burger, but yet the left is trying to make this a big thing. Don't really care. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave a like on it, and we'll talk to you again real soon.